Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election, and I'll be giving you all a very important update on the circumstances of this election. So, yesterday afternoon, we saw Professor Alan Lichtman of American University officially make his 2024 election prediction. Now, before I tell you who Lichtman predicted, let's talk about his track record. He's predicted 10 elections, presidential elections, of course, and he's called 9 of 10 of them correctly. The one result he got wrong was 2000, where Al Gore did not win the election, but did win the popular vote. And obviously, not to open that can of worms, but there were a lot of arguments that had the Supreme Court ruled differently and allowed Florida to do a full recount, Gore would have won the state. Of course, I'm not advocating for that to be true or false. I'm just saying that that election, of all the elections you can get wrong, that one probably is the best one in terms of leeway. So Alan Lichtman has a good track record, and I've actually, a few weeks ago I made a video where I actually criticized his forecasting, and I'm going to, briefly talk about why I still think it is, far from a perfect system. But this is still one of the best kind of academic forecasts of an American election. And it is a very, very reliable one. And if you've agreed with Alan Lichtman in the past 10 elections, you'd be right 9 out of those 10 times. And so yesterday, he officially predicted that nothing can change and that Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States. Now, why did Lichtman predict this? Well, let's look at the keys. We've filled them out here. Red keys are for Trump, blue keys are for Harris, and obviously true keys, because Harris is a member of the incumbent Democratic Party, benefit her. False keys benefit the challenging party, the GOP, led by Donald Trump. And as you can see here, the 8 are true, 5 are false. And to win as an incumbent, what would need to happen is you would need to only win, to win as a challenger, you need to win 6 keys. To win as an incumbent, you need 8 keys. So obviously, even if Kamala Harris were to win 7 of the 13 keys, she would still lose the election per Lichtman, but she won 8 of them. So for that reason, she still wins the election. The keys she loses, some of them are pretty straightforward. Midterm gains, the Democratic Party did not gain seats in the House. That's objectively false. The incumbent is objectively not seeking re-election. And then the other 3 keys that the Donald Trump campaign received from Lichtman were the 2 foreign policy keys, where Lichtman didn't really say there was enough of a foreign policy success for Harris or the Biden administration, really, but he did view there to be enough of a foreign policy failure. And of course, he did, because Kamala Harris is not an incumbent, she does not get the charismatic incumbent key. And once again, she is, I don't think Lichtman characterized her as charismatic in the same way that he did not characterize Trump as charismatic. Lichtman has said that for any candidate to be characterized as charismatic, they have to be kind of a once in a generation type of candidate, like what he called, a JFK or an Obama. So it's very hard to get either of these keys. So they kind of do cancel each other out. But Harris wins 8 keys because she did not have a primary contest. There's no key third party, especially with RFK Jr. dropping out. Strong short and long-term economy. Major policy change enacted during the Biden administration. No social unrest. This one I think you could make the case for. I think this is one of the harder ones, but Lichtman did say that it goes in the direction of true, so it helps Harris. And then no scandal for Harris either. So you heard it here, or I really heard from Al Lichtman, but obviously I'll be providing my analysis of this here. Alan Lichtman did predict a Kamala Harris victory. Now, the reason that this system is good is because it does kind of gauge the pulse of the electorate. It kind of is a good temperature check, because this is basically, and I've said this before, this is basically just a long-winded way of saying if you're popular, you're going to win, right? A lot of these are about charisma. They're about how well the party coalesced behind them. And then the things in the middle are about, did the incumbent party do things? Not necessarily good things. Good things help, especially if they're good things, relating to the economy. But really, it's just major policy change and no scandal. And obviously, I guess it's a good thing to not have a scandal, but it's a very low bar to not have a scandal. And then major policy change, it can be a bad major policy change, and even then it would still benefit the incumbent party and Lichtman's system. Now, obviously, that is a double-edged sword because, first of all, some of these keys, like the social unrest key, are subjective. And then you also have to consider that some of these keys could be twisted, right? Like, let's say, just for example, I was the incumbent president and I enacted a major policy change where I, took away anyone's right to have a dog. That would make me the most unpopular president in the history of America. It would still be a major policy change. Now, obviously, I don't mean this as a bad faith argument to attack Lichtman, and I don't mean this to say that this key is necessarily a bad one. I get where it comes from, but there is a certain level of simplicity that these keys don't, that these keys account for, and once you get past a certain point, you kind of go beyond them. And the real example of this was that prior to Joe Biden dropping out, he was losing the polls nationally. I don't really think there was a good argument for him being favored to win that election. He could have won that election. I don't think he would have. But Lichtman, if he kept his keys the same way he has them right now, it would be the exact same configuration, except we would have the incumbent seeking re-election. So Biden would have won by more than Harris. And even if Biden would have been able to pull that election, out, I don't think he would have won by more than Kamala Harris can potentially win by. So those are my thoughts on the system. It's definitely interesting. It's worth talking about, but it is very flawed. And I also am going to say, not to diminish what Lichtman has done, he's definitely good at what he does. But, getting 9 of the past 10 elections, right, I'd argue that only 3 of these elections were genuinely hard to predict, because all of the elections in the 80s and the 90s were pretty predictable in the final months of the campaign. Both of Obama's elections were pretty predictable. I'd argue that Biden 2020 wasn't, an easy election to predict, but the signs point in one way, and I could say that because I had this channel back in 2020, and I predicted all but one state correctly. So the 3 elections where I think you could legitimately make a case for either party before election day were 2000, 2004, and 2016. All 3 of which were very close Republican wins, and so Lichtman did predict Trump in 2016 and Bush in 2004. He predicted Gore in 2000, but obviously that's, I think, the closest and most crazy presidential election in American history. So certainly he's good at what he does, but I think 9 of 10, like even if you got every toss election wrong, you'd still be 6 of 10. So just consider that and remember that number can be a bit deceiving. But at the end of the day, this is a good forecast. Like I said, it's interesting. It's worth talking about. And it's just good news for Kamala Harris because, say what you want about Alan Lichtman, but he has a knack for these things. He has a knack for getting them right. And so it's interesting to see what we have here. So thank you all so much for watching. Comment down suggestions below. And I will see you all in the next video.